Tales from Azeroth. As always here at the Pig and Whistle in Stormwind, I chat for a variety of subjects with regards to World of Warcraft. So grab a bottle or a pint, sit back and enjoy. Today's subject, we're going to be talking about what roles there are in WoW, or more specifically, what roles suit you. Not too sure what happened there, I couldn't get my R's going. But in WoW, you've got 3 different types of roles. These are the common different roles. You've got damage, DPS, or DD, as some people like to call it, damage dealers. You have the tank, the bulky, upfront, large, loud tank. And you've got the healers. Now, as you go through all of these different games throughout your life, you play many different games, there will be a few games that you come across where these roles matter, and they are in many sort of instances, many different types of games. They can be in FPSs like Overwatch, they can be in WoW itself, different MMORPGs always have them, but you're defined in a raid in World of Warcraft by what role you are. You are either a DPS, you're either a tank, or you're a healer. Now, there are different sort of personalities that go behind each healer and tank, like healer, tank, DPS, and what role you pick for yourself. Because no matter what, you will sort yourself into these roles, whether you know it or not, whether you actively know that you're doing so or not. And this can be a reflection on how you are as a person in real life. This can be a reflection on how you wish to play the game. It can be many different things. But there's many attributes and traits that these roles and the people who take up these roles have. Now we're going to be going through them. There might be some similarities. There might be some that I miss. These are personally what I think defines a DPS, tank and healer, but let's get straight into it. We'll go with the one that's mostly, or the very most common one, which is DPS. Now DPS is damage per second, or damage dealer, as some people would call it. I'm not too sure why people call it damage dealer. It makes sense, but it just doesn't sound right in my head. I don't know, it's probably because I've called it DPS throughout my entire life. But your DPS, they're usually chilled in a way that they don't want any responsibility within a raid, mostly. The responsibility lies with the tanks and healers for the most part. DPS do still have a role within that raiding community, and there are some times where it is a bit more demanding of them to do certain things, but they usually have the more relaxed role. It's usually the role that they want to take on is more relaxed, chilled, and just sort of a step back and not be at the forefront of everything. Now, these are usually the lazy people. I am a lazy person myself, so I choose to be a DPS, or at least the chilled sort of explanation that I'm giving here is a lazy version, because I don't feel like tanking, having to run after a mob to taunt it to bring it back, to mark up my certain mobs. I just want to drink in between each fight, cast a couple fireballs, drink again, and buff up every now and again. Nice and simple, nothing too crazy in all honesty. So you also have the DPS again, this is all my opinion, so don't take this to heart. I'm not having a go at anyone, but this is me personally for the DPS almost. They like big numbers, and this usually is true because I love to see just giant crits on anything that I can. Anything that I crit, it's just a massive number, and I know that I'm beating everyone on DPS. I'm beating the tanks, definitely beating the healers because they're not even doing DPS. What are they doing? It's honestly ridiculous. But I know that I'm beating tanks. I'm doing 3 times their damage. I'm going absolutely crazy on DPS meters, and I'm always looking at that. Every fight, it's have I moved up a place? Am I in second? Am I in first now? Everything that goes with the big numbers, I like to see, and I like to see how much I can push my class and how much I can really pump out the damage numbers and go crazy with it. So it is fun, and that's where I find my enjoyment in raids. It's like, okay, how big of an ignite can we get if you're a fire mage? How big of a one fireball crit can I do? What is my like maximum crit that I've done? Which is something like, I think 3.3 fireball crit, and that's without world buffs. That's just normally buffed. That's no world buffs. That's no flask. That is with a couple consumes though as well. So. But yeah, about 3.3, and I'm kind of happy with that. I'm kind of laid back. It's not been like I'm flasking every raid to try and pump the damage and get the biggest number that I possibly can. I mean, there's some videos on YouTube where people have gotten like 10k soul fires in like a battleground where they're like fully consumed. They have a berserker debuff, and it's just absolutely mind blowing. But as a DPS, I like to show off. With these big numbers, I do like to show off. It is basically you flexing your muscles and being like, yeah, look at me, I'm amazing at this. I'm pumping so much damage that no one can even catch me. I'm on top of the DPS meter, no one's going to do anything. I am the main man in this guild. I am the main damage in this guild. And if you lose me for a week, then you're going to lose out on a serious amount of damage, pretty much. It's kind of that I'm building myself up because I want to be the best DPS in the guild almost. It's kind of a mini competition. And this goes on to having a big ego. Now, my ego is quite big sometimes. I jokingly express myself and like build myself up to be this amazing, like, godly PvP mage and everything. It's just to inflate the ego and sort of, I don't know, it's just to joke about and have a good time. It's nothing like I know that I am the best. It's more like I know that I'm definitely not the best, but I'm fairly decent. I can beat most people, but I want to show everyone else that I am an absolute god of DPS. I can absolutely destroy these damage meters. I can destroy everyone on them. I'm going to be number one on that DPS meter. And like I said, it does cause a sort of mini competition within the guild. So there's about, I'd say 10 people that really want to push it and get that like top spot on the DPS meter every raid day. Some people will be getting world buffs, fully consumables, everything, and they'll be devising like strategies and stuff on passing and getting that top DPS on that week where they get absolutely everything in terms of buffs. Which, I mean, go for it. It means that the raids aren't stale and they aren't repetitive, constantly doing the same thing. You're always fighting for that top spot. You're always looking at the DPS meter on like the last boss at like the last trash pack, and there's like one spell in between you and top place, and you're really trying to pump it out. You're mashing that one button so hard that it's about to fly off of your keyboard, and it does really liven up the raiding scene, in all honesty. So that's where the sort of big ego comes from. It's like, yes, I made it to first. Yes, I'm in the top 2. Stuff like that. I mean, just this past Wednesday? Yeah, past Wednesday, I went into a Blackwing Lair raid, and the first boss, Razorgore, someone has to mind control him, and our mind control person messed up a little bit, so I took over in terms of mind controlling and destroying these 30 eggs that you have to destroy around the room. For people that don't know the boss, you have to destroy all of the 30 eggs that are in the boss's room before you can kill the boss. Otherwise, if you kill the boss with at least even if there's one egg still up, he will explode and one-shot you all. It's that simple, really, that mechanic. But I was driving, air quotes, so to speak, the boss, and I was thinking to myself, oh, this is quite fun, but I'm missing out on damage. So I'm, for the rest of the raid, pumping damage, trying to catch up. And when you get to like an AoE sort of point for mages, there's usually one in every raid, but when you get to an AoE point, I'm looking at that DPS meter so much, and I see myself going like every pack, 12th to 11th to 10th to 9th, 8th, 7th, I just kept going up. And by the time the raid was over, I was second and 0.1% off a top spot. And I'm thinking to myself after the raid, I was so close, but I'm probably top DPS if I'm not driving the first boss and doing no DPS on the first boss whatsoever. So there is again that ego that comes into play. It's like, yeah, I'm still the greatest here, even though I came second. Still, it doesn't tell the whole story. I know I'm the greatest, which is good fun. Again, it's competition. It really pushes you to do something for the DPS, and it gives them to do, or it gives the DPS something to sort of compete over as well. Moving on to tanks. Tanks, they're great. Honestly, they're your talkative. They're your protectors. They're almost like your parents, almost like, you know that they will protect you and like do anything for you. They'll jump in to taunt and mob. They'll like give their lives so that you can deal more damage. Pretty much, they're getting slapped about so that you can like do the most damage that you possibly can. Tanks are great, don't get me wrong, but with these sort of like traits that tanks sort of have, they want a leadership quality. They're looking at themselves and thinking, yeah, I can lead this raid. I'm a leader. Like, I can really push this and get the best out of everyone and really motivate everyone to absolutely smash this raid, smash this boss, whatever. Even if you take it small steps, like I'll kill it, like we'll do this boss immediately, we'll get it down in no time, we'll actually kill him in less than a minute. Or if you go for the long run, it's like, yeah, I want to complete this raid within an hour. Stuff like that. Like, you want your leadership quality to shine through as a tank, and you want to be heard. You're at the forefront of everything. You want everyone's focus on you, and you demand it. You don't ask for it, you demand it. It's like, okay, this is my target. No one touches this target until he's been pulled out of the pack, and then you can kill him. Like, you demand everything out of like your raid, and you want to be sort of the dominating factor in that raid, leading it forward, pushing everyone to do their best. And it basically means that you're the main man of the raid. And now there's multiple tanks usually in a raid group. There's usually about 3 to 4. I mean, 4 is about best because you've got a few off tanks then, but 3 is kind of okay. Yeah, 3 is fine. But you want all of them to be talkative. You want every tank to be up for it, jumping in, have some sort of trick up their sleeve. I mean, I play tanks on other games, Overwatch being one, and I really like the way that tanks are played because you demand space in like Overwatch. You demand like people to respect that you're a tank and you can't just burst them down. Like, I am a big, bulky, like, guy. You will not get past me. And even if you try, I will smack you back so that you can't hurt the people behind me. You are the sort of protective father, almost. And it's quite fun to be that sort of presence, that big, bulky presence every now and again. It's always good. But tanks are great. You always have to have a trick up your sleeve, like I said. I tank sometimes, but it's not the traditional tanking in Classic. I boomkin tank, and boomkin is the druid's balance spec. Now, balance is obviously a DPS spec, and it gives you moonkin form. Now, the moonkin form has the same like uses as bear form. Like, gives you the same armor contribution, and what bear tanks are basically all about is their armor. So even when you're in this moonkin form, you are so tanky with armor that it's unreal, depending on what gear you're wearing, obviously. But there's always a way that there's always tricks that you can have. So I myself being a boomkin, I have loads of like trinkets, AoE trinkets, and I go for an AoE tank. So I would pull a mob or a few mobs, grab it, like several packs almost, several packs, several mobs, you know, a fair amount of enemies, drag them in. I would bark skin and hurricane for AoE damage, and then I would use my trinket and hop into bear form. Now this means that I've got a very good threat lead, And basically I am just sat in bear form swiping away and getting a bit more rage on a few mobs and can taunt off if anyone does rip aggro from me. Now again, I don't do this in raid because it is a bit ridiculous, but in dungeons it is very possible, and there are certain compositions that allow for a boomkin tank, and it's quite fun again to demand your presence. You dictate the pace at which the dungeon or the raid is going, and no one else can sort of push that, like push the raid or the dungeon quicker. No one can slow it down. It's all on you. You are the main man in that run. Now we'll move on to healers. Healers are the unsung heroes, honestly. Healers are just amazing in what they do. They don't want to be in the light, to be shown as these gods, like pumping out loads of damage. They're more than happy to sit back and just heal the tank, heal the main man that is commanding everyone forward and that is pushing everything out and forward, like in the raid. Now, healers can obviously look at the healing charts and have a small competition there with like, oh my god, I've healed like more than you. I healed the most in the raid. I'm the best. But it's not like DPS. Healers don't look at that. Healers are sort of a collective in a raid and a group. They will look at each other and be like, oh my god, you did so well, congratulations. They're like the ones backing each other up and cheering each other on, whereas DPS, on the other hand, I myself personally would jokingly be like, I came first, you're awful, yeah, good luck next week. Whereas the healers is just complete opposite. It's, yeah, good job, like you really did well. So they are really the unsung heroes because they don't have any type of big ego like the DPS. They're very much the backseat role that no one really notices, but they are a huge part in which drives the raid forward. Because if you have awful healers, your tank, no matter how good your tank is, he's going to die. And if you have awful tanks, no matter how good your healers are, the tank will still die somehow. And like these two things are the big components within raids. DPS, you can have like very little DPS, like you wouldn't have. Like, you could half the DPS in our raid team, in my guild, but because we're so well drilled with tanks and healers, the fight will last longer, double the time. If my maths is correct, if you half the damage, it should be double the time in the fight. But if you do that, it just creates a completely different game. You've got longevity, so the healers need to adapt their playstyle. They need to conserve a bit more mana at times. They need to heal at more crucial points instead of just wasting a random flash heal on a tank, maybe. The tanks will also play it a bit safer. They need concentration They need to concentrate longer. They need to pop cooldowns at certain times and rotate, taunt at certain times, etc. So DPS aren't necessarily the biggest thing. Tanks and healers are the core of that raid team. You don't have a good core, everything else crumbles. And the healers don't get the limelight that the tanks do, because the tanks are at the forefront shouting and bawling, and it's like, oh my god, heal me, please heal me, I don't want to die, please heal me. The healers are just silent. In my case anyway. In our guild, it's quite rare to hear a healer speak, like during a raid. It will usually be if there's just a question, or like our guild leader's a healer, so he'll comment on something. We have a couple class leaders, the priest and the druid and stuff, where they'll comment on something as well. So you'll just get like small comments here and there, but they aren't at the forefront and, you know, expressing their voice, shouting at people, telling everything that's happening, telling people what to do. But most importantly, healers are 100% loved by everyone in the game. I myself don't find healing enjoyable at all. I don't necessarily heal in WoW, but I'm going to use Overwatch as an example, another Blizzard game. I heal in Overwatch a tiny bit, but the healers that I do like playing are the ones that can DPS a bit. So they're ones that can like hold their own against a DPS, and that's where my ego comes into play. It's like, okay, I need to show up on the kill feed, like for Overwatch and stuff. So that's where my ego gets in the way. But most of the healers in WoW are absolute saints. They will do everything that they can to support anyone else in what they're doing, and they don't care if they get noticed or not. They really don't care. Again, going back to the healing meters, will you log a raid, so after the raid everyone can look back and see who was top damage, like break everything down, dispels, deaths, when was the deaths during the fight, like when was this healed during the fight, did people buff during the fight, did people use any like potions during the fight, stuff like that. But all the DPS will look at the logs, look at the DPS, and then they'll look at the healing logs. And they'll be like, oh my god, this healer is so good. How did they like beat this person by 3% like heals and stuff? And they'll all be like, oh my god, you're insane. And the healer will respond and be like, I just did my job. Like, it's nothing too fancy. I'm just healing. And the healers won't even look at that. They'll look at like, I don't know, if a tank dropped below 50% during a fight, they'll see that as a failure or something. And they'll see like when the tank will take the most damage, like is it during a taunt or is it like during a parry, stuff like that. So they don't look for that big ego stuff. They just look for the smaller minute details and like work on themselves. Pretty much they'll work on themselves to improve the raid, whereas DPS will work on themselves to improve their DPS. Well, I do anyway, because, you know, I'm the best DPS in the game. But, yeah, healers are just absolutely loved by all. I don't understand how people will put themselves in a healer role and not get bored of it, in all honesty. I'll get bored of it after like a month or so, and even then, that's pushing it. But these are the three main roles on what, or in World of Warcraft. Healer, very selfless. You're not going to be, you know, at the forefront. You're very, you want everyone to succeed. You want everyone else to succeed. Tanks, you're the leader. You're demanding everyone's attention. You want to push the raid to do their very best. DPS, you're just there to have a chill time, see if you can top the damage meter, get a bit of free loot, you know. The sort of lazy and relaxed kind, as always. But again, I could go into so much more detail with tanks, healers, DPS, because there's so many things that you can break down, because there's different tank styles, there's different healer styles, there's different DPS styles. One of the tank styles being the Boomkin tank that I mentioned. Another healing style is actually, this one's in retail more than classic, but another healing style is DPSing to heal, which is a disc priest. And DPS is just many different things that you can cover. Big number damage, small but fast attacks like rogues, stuff like that. So there's different, like there's many sort of sections within each role, and you will subconsciously put yourself in these roles as you're going through World of Warcraft. Like as soon as you hit level 10, you'll look at your talents and be like, oh, protection, that sounds like a cool talent tree. Oh, fury, that sounds like a cool talent tree. Or oh, arms, that sounds like a cool talent tree. Protection just screams, I'm going to protect everyone. I mean, it's in the name. So if you're the leader type quality and you want to protect others, that's what you're going to look forward to. And that's going to sort of flip a switch in your mind. Like, yeah, I'm going to be the protective tank. I'm going to be the bulky guy, you know, at the front, protecting everyone whilst everyone else is behind me, supporting me. And if you're Fury, it screams, oh my god, that sounds so angry. I bet I just swing away at stuff and absolutely hack stuff up with these massive swords or these massive axes and stuff like that. So whenever you look at like a talent, like talent tree, and you've got them three different sections at the bottom, the three different like talent trees, there will be one that stands out and you'll be like, yeah, that sounds cool. I'm going to go for that. And that's where you sort of flip that switch. It's like, do I like protection or do I actually want to go to fury because it sounds more, adrenaline, like adrenaline pumping, like it really gives you your hit almost. But again, you'll figure these roles out as you go along. It might take you years, it might take you months or even weeks. You'll be like, yeah, I'm always a healer, so I'm going to go with a healer. You'll look it up and you'll go from there. Others, it'll just be like, I do like tanking, but I do like also just dealing massive damage. I'm not too keen on healer, and you'll sort of be stuck between the two, and you'll eventually lean towards one, like going forward. But I would like to expand on these in the coming weeks, like the tank, the healer, different sort of sub roles within it. But I would like to thank you all for listening, and I would like to give you some news. Now, earlier this week, a new website was put up, and this is the official Pig and Whistle website that has been put up. There'll be a link down in the description. Please check it out. It's got absolutely everything that you could want on it. It's got links to all the social medias, the Patreon, the podcast itself. It gives you a intro video about me, why I want to do the podcast, and just why I love producing this content for you. I'd just appreciate it so much if you go and at least check it out and just see the work that's been put on it, because it, in my opinion, it is an amazing website, and I'm so happy with how it looks. And once again, I would like you to point you towards the Pig and Whistle Patreon. It will be down in the description as well with the website. And it's not a mandatory thing by all means. You'll always get these podcasts every week, whether you're a Patreon member or not. But if you do wish to donate to the Pig and Whistle Patreon, it will be greatly appreciated. I don't even know how I could appreciate it even more just for you guys listening. But you'd also get additional benefits with the Patreon. You'd get exclusive podcasts and also a couple of Discord benefits to go along with it. Thank you all very much for watching as always. It is very appreciated. I say that too much, I just realised. And go with Valor, friend. Goodbye all.